I think most of us believe that God is love, but are we enjoying His love for us each day? Are you making personal all that Christ's death for you has made possible? Are you ready to go deeper? Kathy Tricoli writes, Debbie Alsdorf has given us a highly valuable how-to manual for going deeper. Deeper in our faith, deeper in discovering our worth, and deeper in our capacity to see and love others as God does. Debbie, you have been learning a lot, and as often is the case, learning the hard way, and you truly are on a mission.
You're right. I am on a mission because I was a Christian for 17 years before I realized the depths of God's love for me.
Now, what do you call yourself? A Stepford Christian?
Yes, I'm a recovering Stepford Christian. I would say that the first 17 years of my walk with Jesus was really more of a Stepford reality. I learned how to do the right things, say the right things, look the right way, and I was going to be pretty perfect and polished for Jesus, of course. I thought that my walk with Christ was about what I needed to do for Him. So when I came to Him, I accepted His love for me, but then I thought I needed to get busy getting myself together and more perfect
now,
for
in fairness, you're a California girl, and you were a little performer.
Yes. Yes, and so that was part of my whole background. So of course I brought whatever I lived in growing up, I brought that into my Christian experience. So growing up, especially in the California culture, I felt like everything was about the external and what you could do. You know, pretty perfect and polished without, you know, that's an underscored thing that we don't say, but it's really part of who we are. And so I brought that into my Christian experience with me. And so I was just living almost like spinning on a wheel, trying to be my best for God. But then one day, Stepford woman crashed and burned, and I needed something deeper than what I could do for God. I needed real hope in who He really was instead of what I could do for Him.
Now, as is often the case, God permits some pretty major crushing to get at us, to get us off life the way we do it.
Yes.
And can you tell us about that?
Well, my life seemed like a picket fence, perfect Christian reality. I was a senior pastor's wife. We founded a church, started like a lot of churches start in California as home Bible studies. It grew to a big, giant church. And one day my husband came home and told me that he had never loved me. And within a very short time, those words became a new reality of becoming a divorced Christian woman who had been a pastor's wife, who had been in full-time ministry with 2 little boys. And unfortunately, those words, Debbie, I've never loved you, hit at a much deeper part than even my marriage. That was bad enough.
The divorce was bad enough,
It was bad enough, and the rejection, because I loved my husband very much, the rejection of that was just unbelievable, something I never thought would happen to me as a Christian woman. But then it also hit on every area, what I thought about myself. Who was I if I wasn't the pastor's wife? Who was I if I wasn't able to perfectly perform as a Christian woman? Who was I if I wasn't in, quote, ministry anymore? And now I was a single mother, and everything that to me spelled failure was now my life. And so now I had to learn to trust God with an imperfect reality.
You truly lost your identity.
I did.
Who am I?
Because my identity really, without me knowing, was in the wrong place. I was very sincere, but I was sincerely misdirected about who I was and, more importantly, whose I was.
This is so important. This can happen in a woman's life for many reasons.
Many reasons, yes.
But I remember one woman in a very abusive marriage talking about finding her high school yearbook and opening to the page and seeing her sparkling picture, and you know how they have a caption, you know, what's your outlook on the rest of your life? And I can't remember what the slogan was that she had chosen, the sentence, but this is a woman with great expectations and a leader in her class, someone that everybody expected to see in days ahead doing great things. And she looked at herself and thought, where did she go? Where did that woman go? It had been so progressively, systematically crushed out of her that she'd actually lost herself her true self.
Absolutely. And so it doesn't have to be through something like divorce. It could be for a variety of reasons. But when we lose or never even knew who we are and what purpose our life is here for, it's hard to live with the passion that God created us for. And that is my mission. I want women to know who they are, and more importantly, whose they are, because I never really knew that. And that single word, his, that I am his, that I am not my own, that I belong to the God who created me, has absolutely changed everything in my life in the last 20 years.
I think that was my favorite hymn when I first came to know Jesus. I am his and he is mine. You know that one. In that place of brokenness and feeling like a failure, and I'm sure devastation, what enabled you to begin to climb back up? You know, remember Amy Grant's old song? Lord, raise my arms so you can lift me up.
Yes.
She couldn't even raise her arms. That song said, look, I'm in such a place, I don't know how to get back to anything I can live in. What did you do?
Well, and that certainly was me, because I went into a very debilitating depression. I had never experienced depression before, and now, unfortunately, I know depression. And in my depression, I was not a candidate for medical intervention. I could not take the medicines that could help you get biologically even balanced because of a liver disease that I have. And so during that time, after the doctor told me that I would have to get myself together because I couldn't take any medication, I sat in the parking lot at the medical center and I said, get myself together. And the scripture came through my mind out of Psalms that says he will send his word and heal them. Well, I'd been a Christian for years and I felt not healed at all, and so I wasn't impressed with that idea. But I realized God was speaking to my heart, that he wanted to be my healer and he was going to do it through his word. Well, this was a challenge for me because I couldn't really look at my leather-bound Bible because it brought too much ministry/divorce pain to my little depressed heart. And so I copied Psalm 139 on a piece of paper at a local copy place, and I carried it around with me, and I read Psalm 139 morning, noon, and night as if it were my medicine. I was depressed and I just needed direction, and so this is the step that I took. And I did that for many months, and it changed my life forever. To this day, the things that God showed me out of those readings to this day guide me, give me peace, and change my reality.
This is very interesting to hear, because most people I talk to who have been in a place of deep depression tell me that they couldn't read their Bible.
Right, absolutely.
Partly because their mind was scrambled.
Absolutely.
But I do know that they have written and pasted scriptures on a mirror, on the fridge.
Absolutely.
And you just literally carried that
just like
Psalm
that.
139.
And I read it out loud because my mind was scrambled, because I was very depressed. And I read it out loud, and for the first several weeks, to be honest, it didn't feel like anything. I just did it as if you would take a medication. I was so desperate because I had 2 little boys who desperately needed me, and I had lost my will to live. I was so lost and such a victim to my circumstances in my own mind at the time. And as I read Psalm 139, morning, noon, and night, some things began popping out at me, and those were the things that I posted everywhere. There were 4 things that I saw in Psalm 139 that I'd never seen before, but when you read anything over and over and sit with it, something new happens.
Well, God says your mind will be renewed
Yes.
by his word.
And it has.
Made new.
Totally made new. And in Psalm 139, I call these my core truths now because they changed everything. He showed me in that psalm that he knows me, and that he protects me, and that he made me, and that he values those that he made. And that's all I needed to know during that time. It didn't heal my depression overnight. It was a series of replacing all the negative things I kept thinking every day with the truth. And I would have Post-its everywhere. He knows me. Oh, that's great news. God knows me. So that means he knows my pain. He knows the buttons this is pushed. He knows the historical pain that needs to be healed. He knows my future. He knows this is hard. He knows my depression. I can go on and on. And, you know, I was going to some counseling at the time, which was very helpful, but even I was tired of my sad, bad story. And when I looked at scripture and said, the God that created me and knows his plans for me knows me. And he knows every bit of this pain, and I began slowly starting to have hope again.
This is wonderful to hear. You have a different fleshing out of the acrostic for fine. You know, I don't know if you lied to people during those days and said, I'm fine, when you knew you weren't. But tell us how you spell fine, or did. You don't anymore.